a pre-newbie, you haven't made a commitment yet, or you're just here for information. I think we had a lot of people signed up for just that. I'm glad to just sit and meet with you and answer every question you have if you're a pre-newbie.
I would like that.
Can I come?
And by the way, since my son aged out, we're now starting a team at the next level up, so I'm both the rookie and the experienced coach, so I feel your pain in both sides. The last question I have polling the audience, how many here would have a team that is either that's a public and private school based team? Public or private school-based team. Okay, how many would have a community-based team like Scouts or something, or neighborhood? Okay, and do we have any that are homeschool teams? All right, okay, thank you. I just wanted to be able to guide this a little better. Pamela, will you shift the stage? All right, so here's what I was going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the guiding principle first, and then the three that I was going to share with everybody, I'll kind of zip through that because I know we want to get to the next chunk. And then for those who are ready for additional information, I'll go through these. What I've put here, Karen told me that what's most helpful is to see actual examples that you can just take and use and modify. And I have to admit that really helped us too. So I've put a lot of examples on these charts that you won't really be able to read here, but Karen, I'm happy to give you the file. If anybody asks for it, you can just pass it on to them. So these are from our team. Our guiding principle, she was saying the kids do the work. I always felt it's their team. It's not my team, it's their team. And that was a guiding principle. I would look at the kids and say, it's your team. What are your goals? So my function, I felt, was cue them up with the plan and the work. I would have them help me with that, but at this age, they don't have a lot of leadership and project management skills, and that is overwhelming for them. So I would help coordinate and manage and cue them up with the work, but then always it was their work. Does that make sense? Okay. Sometimes when they were younger, some of them did not have very good writing skills, so they would say it, and I would type it in meetings, things like that, because I didn't want the writing skill to pull everybody down, that sort of thing. So that was our guiding principle. The three I'm going to talk about right now, picking up a little bit of a cold, sorry. A team notebook. How many of you have done a team notebook in the past? Okay, it's not a requirement, okay? A team notebook, how to split jobs in a team. I have got a lot of lessons learned there, as I'm sure Dave and others do, and how to spread the work over time. That's the really painful part, because every year we say, we are not going to get in this situation where the last week, yeah, okay, everybody's smiling. Yeah, so try and spread the work, and that's where you can help your kids. Okay, so go ahead. Yes?
Question. So based on your experience, what's our typical job of the team?
I'm going to show an example. Thank you for the lead-in. I'm going to show that, yes.
And well, it's been my experience that with this notebook, don't put it off till the end because of that.
Yes, and I've got some tips on that too. And if you don't get it done, you don't get it done. It's not the end of the world. It is not required. Where it's helpful, and go ahead and go to the next chart. Okay, no, go to the previous one, sorry. We did one even our first year. These are the four from, we were Epic Team. We had the orange shirts. I don't know if any of you, we were a big team. But these are the four notebooks we did, and we brought them today. So if at some point you just want to come over and look at them, feel free to. This would be the first year, so if you're a rookie coach, you might want to look at the capability of the first year. You'll see the kids' handwritings and sketches and the logo designs and things like that. Question back there?
Could you go back to the first slide?
What?
Could you go back to the first slide?
Sure. Okay.
I'm gonna put this presentation on my website.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
So you don't have to write everything.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So we're back here. So those are our four. The kids did the work. There's many purposes and benefits to this. Again, it's optional. You do not have to do it. The main use is it captures the work products for your team. All right. So when they're doing research, you say, hey, turn your research into this guy, and he's going to hole punch and stick it in the binder. The kids, we would take pictures. We would get the pictures developed and they would write the captions, and they love looking. Some of those captions are hilarious, okay? But they love looking through that stuff. So it captures the work, it's fun for the kids, it's a source of pride, and they go in and they hand it to the judges in a judging session, and then they get it back when they're done. You know, the judges may not look at much of it. We would typically have them open it to a certain page that was relevant to that competition, but it was a source of pride for them. Then the next year, they could build on the previous year, too. So you have that. The other value for this from a coaching standpoint is, I know for us, the first few years, we didn't have enough robots to go around, especially like the community groups and the homeschool groups. You may be limited in your number of bots. This is a great way to spread and balance the work. If you've got 2 bots and you've got 3, you've split it into 3 little subgroups. You do a bot, and a team notebook or a teamwork, and you just rotate periodically, okay? So it helps balance the load. All right, you want to go to the next one? This I'm not going to go through in detail, but it helps me to see examples. So you can see up here we have 1 tab for each judged competition. So here's research, technical, and we call it teamwork, but they also call it core values. These are the things that we just captured and stuck in the book. Okay? You want to go to the next one? Okay, so that was Team Notebook. You can just use it to just capture your work. Have the kids punch holes and stick it in there. The next one, we had a question about the split of jobs. This is what ours evolved into. Basically, every child on a team had 2 functions. They worked on a mission with the robot and the programming and the building, and then they had sort of a leadership role relative to one of the competitions. So there's really 4. You have 3 judged competitions where you go in and talk to a panel of judges, like Karen was saying, and you have 1 where you're running the robots. So that's 4 competitions. Depending on the size of the team, I've had as small as 5, as big as 10. I would make sure that at least 1 person was assigned to each one of those competitions. Now, everybody would work on everything, but the person who had that lead job was responsible for being the leader. It's their team. So they would be the one to integrate the stuff for tournament day for that competition. Does that make sense? So you can see this was last year's. We had 9. We had 2 operators. You generally have 1 person operating the robot and 1 person helping by changing out attachments. We use the analogy, it's the doctor, and when the doctor says scalpel, the assistant puts the scalpel right in their hand exactly the way they need it, and the doctor puts it right on the robot, okay? But you can do it different ways. Some teams rotate in and out. We just found that wasn't as efficient for us. So there's your 2 operators. Then we have 2 research people. 1 generally handled all the props and the kind of the stage director, and the other one handled more the science portion of it. Then we had 2 technical, 1 focused on being the hardware guy with spare parts and making sure the wheels were matched and things like that, and 1 that handled mostly software. But again, everybody did programming, okay? And the last one here is teamwork. I would put my youngest, least experienced on teamwork. With 1 exception, I would have a more senior person to be the leader. And my teamwork leader managed our book. They were our book manager. What the job entailed is sort of delineated here. It's little things, like when you're getting ready to go into research, you turn to your research guy and say, is your team ready? You know, take your team over to the judging room, and I walk in the back. It's their team. Little things like that get them to step up to leadership is really good. So there's all those duties. This is the mission they worked on. If you've looked at the challenge, you'll see that there's a lot of little missions, and it's kind of overwhelming. And you go, whoa, there's all these rules. Well, you sit down, you strategize, and you put different things together into one what we call ganged mission. So our robots will go out and pick up this and push this and dump this and then come back. So that would be a ganged mission. And we had 3 of those. Boys decided on 3. So we split into 3 subgroups, and each kid had 1 job for leadership and 1 ganged mission for robot work. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Is that a typical 9? Is that
I think that's large.
that's large?
And for new teams, unless you have a lot of help and a lot of robots, I would probably start smaller,
When you say a lot of help, you mean like adult help?
like adult help.
Okay.
And that's not to do the work, that's just to post them to kind of help guide.
So with that team of 9, how many adults did you have helping?
Sometimes it was just me because the kids were getting older. The early years, I generally had 2 adults with me. But again, they were just there for support.
Right.
Okay? Any other questions? Yes?
Are you going to talk a little more about programming, or you assign someone to program, or you said everybody's going to program? This is my second year doing this, and the problem we had last year was trying to develop some type of strategy for version control, because everybody wants to program. And
Okay, yeah, and Emery and I can look at each other and talk about it, I bet Dave can too. Version control, I'll tell you what, I was not going to go into that amount of detail today. I can get with you afterwards, and I know we're pushing the time limit, but Karen told us that there were a lot of people requesting programming training for next week. And Emery is probably going to talk on that. And he and I worked a lot on, we call it configuration control of your software, and you have to. And so he'll pull that in. Also like naming variables and file names and stuff like that. There are things you can do to prevent, okay. Been there, yeah. Okay, yes.
The leadership role for the student, for the kids.
I'm sorry, what?
The leadership roles.
Leadership,
Yeah, do you rotate that, or it's set for the whole season?
That's a good question. I think as a coach, you can decide what you want to do. I set it for the whole season. Okay? One thing we did sometimes rotate these. Because sometimes not all kids were there, and you wanted to balance out who was working on what. You wanted to get some fresh ideas into another game mission. So we kind of rotated those up a bit. Leadership roles I tended to leave the same. I had intended the first year to kind of rotate them, but the kids took ownership of the job they were in, and they didn't want to. They didn't want to rotate, and all of them did not want to rotate. So that was fine. Yes?
Can you repeat what you said? Each something should have 1 game mission and 1
One job. So, and this is my son Emery. I took the rest of the names out. But Emery, he was our prime robot operator, and he worked ganged mission 1. So each child has a job for leadership with those judged competitions, and each child has robot work. You don't have to do it this way. I just found this was a good way to do it because it did get them to step up to their team. And it takes delegate, because you will burn out. You will burn out if you don't get the kids to do it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The third and final one, and I'll go through this one quickly, is spread your word. And I never thought this was this big a deal, but the kids shared it at some of their core values judging, and a couple of the judges went, "That's a great idea." I thought, well, okay, I'll share it. What we did is, yes?
Did you ever have to take leadership away from a bigger team member?
One of the things I'm going to talk about with the more experienced coaches is managing distraction, and behavior challenges kind of fell under that for me. I'll be honest with you, I was extremely blessed because I had 9 all boys, wonderful young men. And so the behavior issues we had were more distraction challenges. That's where it helped just having other parents around to manage that. Now, taking a leadership role away in terms of maybe they didn't have the ability or they weren't following through with it, I would just pull that child aside and talk with them and maybe give them a little more help. That's the value in having two assigned to one job, like two research guys. The one that was more, it's sort of like Star Wars, there's always an apprentice and whatever that is. The older, more experienced one did the more leadership-oriented, and the second one helped with that leadership. So when you have two, you can also you have a little bit of a backup there too. Okay, on the schedule, as a coach, you need to help your team understand what needs to get done. Help them understand, here's our milestone, guys. We have a practice day here. We're signing up for this qualifier, and if you guys make it, here's our championship tournament. Here's the things we have to do. How are we going to fit them in by week to be ready here? So what we did then, because especially when they're young, did I leave it over here? Oh, it's over there. Okay. Thank you. When they're young, they don't have a real good sense of time. And so they actually made calendars. Again, this is one you rotate out if you don't have enough robots. They can be making a calendar. And the act of making a monthly calendar, that alone I saw learning. Because they have to realize, oh, what's the first day of the month? And then work all the way around. And so here they made their calendar, and this one was less decorated. Sometimes there'd be a lot of personality on it. But then we would fill in the milestones and the meeting days, and they would have to figure out which task goes on which week, okay? Then we would post these on the wall, and then each week we always had team time at the beginning, because that's when you're going to get the most focus. The teamwork leader would stand up and go, okay guys, we're here. We finished this last week. In 2 weeks we have to do this. Remember, this is coming up and this is what we're doing today. Does anybody have any questions? And they would talk about it. And so it was a prompt for the team, the core values leader, to help the team plan and manage their work. So it sounds simple, but it actually did help. And I think I did all of that now. So those are the top three. I think at this point, anybody want to go back to the overview chart? Go backwards? Yeah, here. So I covered this three. I know we want to get off in the other sessions. So for those, most of you, who want the rookie year information, I guess stay here. Okay, and that will be with Olivia. And for those of you who want this, or I'm happy to answer more questions on this, if you would like that, we'll go over there. We'll be doing part 2 on that screen. Okay? Is that good?
Thank you.
All right.